think we have most of everyone, so let's get started. So before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to just introduce myself. My name is Aarav Makadia, and I'm the president of the Internatus Business Club here in New Jersey, also commonly referred to as IBCNJ, and I'm also a junior at Monroe Township High School. On behalf of all of our partners and other affiliates, I'd like to welcome everybody to our first official event of 2021 here at IBC New Jersey. Today, I'm honored to have a panel of current Harvard students and alums who will be sharing more of their experiences surrounding Harvard. However, a couple of other things before we kind of get started here. Should any of you members today find yourself curious or unaware of anything that we discussed throughout the duration of the event, please direct any of your questions to Jeremy Slaten in the chat, who will be leading our final Q&A session towards the end of the panel. Also, for those of you who might be tuning in online, the Internatus Business Club, or IBC, is a national nonprofit collection of business clubs consisting of emerging student leaders with the common goal of providing value to society. IBC members have access to selective networking events, workshops, and quarterly business forums, as well as exclusive opportunities at select partners across the country and community initiatives. For more information, feel free to check out internatus.org. And so without further ado, let me allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Right, so Abigail, you're up first.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I know it's been a crazy time for us all, but to give a brief intro on myself, feel free to call me Abby. I'm a current sophomore at Harvard studying applied mathematics and econ. A lot of my career interests lie within finance. And also, I guess one of the sub-bullets is this past summer, I had the amazing opportunity to found a nonprofit organization that focuses on aiding underprivileged students through the college application process. So that's been, a passion project of mine, and I've had a really great time in terms of just empowering youth in education.
Awesome. So Eric, I think you're up next.
Hey everyone, my name is Eric. I'm a sophomore at Harvard. I'm studying applied math and computer science. I'm originally from New Jersey. I hold Jersey really closely to my heart. I'm also co-president of Harvard Latinos in Finance and Technology. Essentially, it's just a pre-professional organization with the mission of changing the narrative of underrepresentation of minorities in the finance and technology sectors. It started off with finance and technology sectors, but we've also expanded into consulting, nonprofits, and entrepreneurship. And I'll be happy to talk about that more later on. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I hope everyone enjoys this call. Thanks again to Aarav.
All right. So Connor, I think you're up next.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name's Connor. I'm a junior at Harvard, and I'm studying computer science with a secondary in economics. My interests primarily lie in the intersection of technology and business and politics. And so at Harvard, I was formerly on the board of Harvard College Consulting Group. I was in the JFK Junior Forum, which is a political group that brings speakers to campus. I was also a member of Harvard Ventures, just to kind of give you an idea of some of my interests. And currently I'm doing kind of a year-round internship with a company called Definity, and I'm helping them to develop some educational content as related to some of their computer science curricula.
Awesome. So I believe Reed, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Reed. I graduated from Harvard back in 2018. I majored in social studies with a minor in mathematical sciences. Currently what I do is I helped co-found an organization focused on helping young people who are passionate about making the world a better place actually have the pathways to return to their hometowns and serve in local government or nonprofits, and working to cultivate them as leaders in their community over the long term is the work that we do. Lead for America, we have about 100 fellows serving in 24 states right now, and are working on continuing to grow the model and also launching some civic education initiatives and other initiatives to help basically help revitalize communities that need the support. When I was at Harvard, I was involved in the Harvard College Democrats. I work for the Crimson. I play club soccer. So happy to talk about any of those experiences at Harvard as well.
Dope. So those are all of our speakers. Now that everyone knows a bit about each other, I'm going to hand it off to Zain, who's our Director of Strategic Initiatives here at IBCNJ, and we'll be covering the questionnaire part of our panel here today.
Yeah, thank you, Aarav, and all the speakers for their introduction. And like Aarav said, I'm Zain Sohail. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives here, and I also serve on our international board. And in business, my interests specifically lie in social entrepreneurship and like economic theory. So right now we'll be getting into our first question. So why did you choose Harvard, and are you ultimately happy with your choice? And for the questions, we'll go in the order of how you introduce yourself. So we'll start with Abigail, then Eric, then Connor, then Reed.
Yeah, so I chose Harvard. Well, I guess to give you some insight into my college journey, I was choosing between Yale and Harvard, and it was really important for me to go to an institution where I felt supported and where I felt a real sense of community. And so I went to Yale's like visiting weekend and I hated it. And then I went to Harvard's visiting weekend, and it really felt like I had found my people. I had the and actually some of the people that I met sort of at that visiting weekend, like I still continue to be friends with them today and like talk over Zoom now. So that's a super cool thing. But yeah, I think ultimately I chose to come here for just the amazing people that this institution attracts, and just for the, I guess, magnetism that I felt to the place once I was, formally on campus, introduced to professors and introduced to my peers. And to answer the second part of this question, I am extremely happy with my choice. I think one of the best things, one of my favorite things about Harvard is definitely it's being a liberal arts institution, in the sense that you're exposed to so many, fields, and not even just like within academics, but I think more generally as well. And so I've learned tremendously during my time here about really random things. Like I know my freshman year they always encourage you to explore, so I took really weird classes. I took a psych class. I took Hum 10, which is like our flagship humanities course. I took Intro to Chinese, and I took a math course. And I think it's really cool how I had to have that swath of experience, and I've tried to kind of replicate just, I guess, exploration and really taking full advantage of the liberal arts experience at this institution.
Thank you. Now, Eric, if you could answer.
Yeah, so I started thinking about college junior year of high school, and I quickly narrowed on Harvard as like my dream school. And so I applied early, put all my eggs in the basket, and thankfully got in and committed basically right away. And so that's why I chose to go to Harvard. It's my dream school. I just love the idea of like being surrounded by like talented and smart, hardworking individuals, just like having them push me to even greater limits than I already pushed myself towards individually. And so that's why I wanted to go to Harvard, and I guess like I got in, so I chose to go right away. And as to whether or not I'm happy, I'm pretty happy. I found like a really supportive community here. Harvard is a really diverse place, and that's one thing I love about Harvard. For example, like in one day, like you're talking with someone from England and from Australia, and then you're talking someone who comes from a really underprivileged background, and someone who's like super interested in math. You have like rowers, like future Olympians. It's really cool. Just like I'm not like experiencing such a diversity of like culture and people, and to understand it just makes you feel like a more worldly person, and it just helps you understand the world in a broader sense. And so I'm really happy with my choice. I have a lot of really good friends that I'm still connected with, and yeah, I wouldn't have chosen any other way.
Great. Connor, you're up next.
Thanks. So to give you some insight into my application process, I initially applied early to Harvard and got in, and I committed right away. I kind of knew after visiting a bunch of schools that Harvard was definitely pretty high on the list. I think to that point, though, it is very difficult to figure out what school is the right one, especially if you're looking, say, at other comparable schools, maybe in the Ivy League or other similar ones. And to echo Abigail's point, I think that Visitas, which is the program that Harvard has that brings students on campus for a weekend just to kind of get a sense of what Harvard's like, it was a great program. And I also made some friends, and actually some of my best friends currently at Harvard are people that I met at that very first weekend that I just happened to sit down next to at our dining hall. And so I think that was a great experience and a way to really figure out if I vibed with Harvard or not. I think it's pretty hard to get a sense of schools just from a tour. And so I would say, don't put, if I'm giving advice to the masses here, I'd say probably don't put too much weight on that tour, because I think there are a lot of factors that can affect it, whether it be the tour guide or the weather on the day. I know I had a more negative impression of schools that were that I toured when it was rainy versus being sunny. And so I think it's very hard to get that sense. And I'd really encourage those of you who are applying to try and do some of the in-person longer activities that really give you a better sense of what the school's like. As for, am I happy with my choice? Yes, I'm very happy with my choice. I feel like I've really found my group here. And I think Harvard has a ton of amazing activities. And in my opinion, what's really been great about Harvard has been both the people and the extracurricular activities. And that's really what I've thrown myself into, more so even than classes. And I'm sure everyone else here who's also very involved in extracurriculars would probably echo that as well, and say that one thing that really makes Harvard stand out is the fact that students are really committed to their extracurriculars and really care a lot about that, just because we're doing so many cool things with it. And that's something that I haven't seen at a lot of other schools. And it's something I'm pretty proud to be a part of.
Thank you. So finally, Reed.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Hey, so yeah, what I would say here is, yeah, I mean, I think I chose to go to Harvard. I mean, it feels like kind of a choice, but I feel like it was incredibly lucky. You know, I didn't apply early, didn't get into my first choice school early, and then kind of, yeah, just surprisingly got in. I wasn't even really planning on applying until like the last minute, and I decided to apply. So yeah, I feel like, I think the reason that I ended up choosing, I think, like other people said, doing the Visitas tour, just finding people who I really connected with and people who, you know, just kind of brought a certain sort of joy and certain kind of life affirmation into their sort of work, and their passion, I think, was really inspiring to me and really made me feel like it would be a good community, which I think it certainly was. I think what I'm sort of most grateful for, you know, from my Harvard experience is that I now just know so many incredible people, people who inspire me because they're, you know, trying to innovate, they're trying to do new things, they're trying to make the world a better place. And that's kind of what I'm really passionate about. I think kind of seeing that now as an alumnus, like you can just kind of look around and see all these people who you graduate with who are, you know, starting to, you know, build their own startups or, you know, otherwise, you know, innovate or write impressive things in different, you know, journalist outlets. You know, there's so many interesting things happening. I think what I would say though is kind of having graduated and kind of just being able to look at it with a little bit of hindsight. I think there's also all sorts of kind of negative influences, I think, involved with going to a place like Harvard in terms of the amount of sheer you know, competitiveness, in terms of just everyone's in school, everyone, you know, wants to be impressive. And I think that kind of environment can be toxic for some people if you don't find the right groups of friends. So I think that's something certainly to look out for. I think the other thing is that I think a lot of people at Harvard really don't, they become more unsure about what they want to do, and they, you know, end up not kind of taking an active choice about what they want to do with their career and kind of follow what everyone else is doing. So I would definitely just be aware of those influences and to try to stay grounded in what, you know, what you're there for, wherever you go to college, and realize that any school has really awesome people, really incredible people. Now I have so many incredible colleagues who did not go to Ivy Leagues, did not go to any, you know, particularly prestigious school, and they're incredible, intelligent, kind individuals that, you know, I think the world of. So it certainly shouldn't be sort of a make or break thing what school you go to. Every school has incredible communities.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our second question now. So have you enjoyed your experience at Harvard this far, or just in general for Reed? And how will Harvard set you up for going into your chosen industry? How will it set you apart in that? So Abigail, if you could begin.
Yeah, so like I mentioned previously, I am very happy with my choice to attend Harvard. I have absolutely loved my experience so far. Again, initially why I chose to come to this institution was for the community and the people that I know I would be surrounded with. And that definitely has sort of paid off. In terms of a lot of the learning I personally have undergone hasn't necessarily been in a classroom setting or, um, and I guess like in a classroom. It really has been for my peers. And I like what you said, Reed, about just being inspired by the people around you. I definitely do resonate with that. I am so motivated by my colleagues, so motivated by sort of their aspirations and what they're currently doing. Yeah, there are just a lot of amazing people who attend Harvard. Like I know someone I talked to was like the daughter of the president of like some European country or something. And other people are like stars of nonprofits or Olympians, etc. So you do learn a lot just sort of from your peers. And I don't know if that's unique to maybe going to college or to Harvard, but that is something that is one of my favorite things for attending a place like this. And then to answer your second question about how attending Harvard might set me apart. So I will admit that, one of the reasons that I went to Harvard wasn't, I guess, so much for the prestige aspect, although I can't say that that wasn't maybe something unconscious or something that did influence my decision. But I don't really think too much about I've never really thought too much about how maybe going to Harvard will impact getting into industry. I definitely don't think you should pick a school because you're like, oh, it will look the best to employers or um, anything like that. I will say that the alumni connections are incredibly powerful, but I wouldn't say that should be maybe your sole motivator for choosing an institution. Again, you will be here for 4 years. So for me personally, community, access to learning and professors and opportunities has been much more important. But I also won't deny that going to Harvard has given me a leg up when it comes to recruitment or when going into my industry of choice.
Right, so
Oh, yeah, so sorry, I was just going. So, to echo Abigail's, Abby's point on like being inspired, and Reed's point, of course, of being inspired by like people you're around. Yeah, it's like the best part about the Harvard experience, in my opinion. Like when you're on campus, and you wake up, you do your morning routine, you eat, and then you like go to your first class, and you see everyone's in the hustle and bustle, like everyone's like running around, like just working hard, and you just like feed off that. You just like really feed off that energy. Like it just like everyone's working hard around you. Like it just pushes you to work even harder. That's like for me, it's not like about competing. It was just like, oh, like like everyone's doing their own thing. Everyone's got their own vision, and like they're working towards their vision of themselves, and I want to work towards my vision of myself. And so yeah, just like being fueled by that, like that energy. That's one thing I really love about Harvard. Um, and yeah, and like I guess where I'm from, like I didn't really have anyone who kind of like shared like that work ethic, and like being at Harvard and like having friends who share that work ethic like, and like we're like hanging out turns out to be like just like working at the library together. Like it's really awesome. Like I really love that about Harvard. And so like, and yeah, like so in short, like I've enjoyed my experience a lot so far. As to like how it will set me apart when I get into like an industry of my choice. Of course, the Harvard brand carries a lot of weight. If you put on your resume, Harvard, it's not just like about like the prestige. It just says a lot about you. Like just being able to say I got into Harvard, it says a lot about like what you did in the past, like how hard you worked in the past, like what kind of person you are. And so like, it does open doors. However, it's not the end all be all, of course. I don't think it's worth going to a school just to get that prestige if you're not going to like it. So definitely, if you're considering going to Harvard, definitely don't just apply for the brand name, like apply because you really truly feel like it fits with where you want to go in life. But yeah, it definitely opens doors, but again, it's not the end all be all. There's incredible people out there who didn't go to Harvard, who didn't go to Ivy Leagues, and yeah, and so that's in short what I have to offer here.
I can go now. I think in terms of what some of the other members have said, Harvard can be a pretty competitive place, and there are amazing positives of that. I think, as Eric mentioned, it really is. I feel like I can feed off of other people working really hard around me. And at the same time, it can also be overwhelming at times. However, one thing I was pretty worried about coming in was whether Harvard would be cutthroat, or if I thought that other students would want me to do poorly or things like that. And I haven't found it to be the case at all. I think in particular with my friend group, I've found them all to be incredibly supportive, and everyone is really just looking out for each other. So I think where the competitiveness versus cutthroatness might play a role is there's kind of a totem pole of everyone trying to climb this ladder of racking up accolades and trying to get the best job and blah, blah, blah. And it kind of can be overwhelming at times. And I think it is hard to put things into perspective and really understand what ultimately matters to your happiness. At the same time, I think that personally, when you're interacting with your friends and other groups that you have, I haven't experienced any overt kind of negative cutthroat scenes or scenarios. And so I've been really happy with the level of competition that's offered, while also being a really open and friendly place. And I think that, as everyone says, it's the common trope. The people here are amazing, and that, quite frankly, is the best part about Harvard. It's the people and the organizations, and I value that much more than the academics. I think in terms of how Harvard will set you apart in industry, I'm not really sure I can weigh in on that at this point. What I will say, though, is I think that, as Reed and some others have said, there are a lot of amazing institutions that are very similar to Harvard. And I do want to be careful, especially as we have a panel of Harvard students here, to not fetishize the name and make it out to be just this amazing place that is the end all be all. There are so many amazing places that I would have been so excited to go to if I hadn't gotten to Harvard. And at the end of the day, I have to acknowledge that my success here and getting into Harvard has a lot to do with luck. And I think that's important to keep in mind, and it's important to kind of keep your expectations set there, that if you come out of this and are very excited about Harvard, that's absolutely awesome. But at the same time, please don't feel that at the detriment of other schools, or feel that Harvard is the only place that can offer you a great education, because it's certainly not true. And I think that can make the application process a lot harder if you think in that framework or in that mindset.
Great. Yeah, I think it's my turn. So yeah, I really appreciate kind of what Connor was saying there at the end. I think I was going to say something somewhat similar. I mean, I personally definitely enjoyed my experience. Like others, I think I had a really great group of friends. And I think that sort of friend group, I think the relational aspect of the experience is I think so key to whether you'll thrive or not thrive at any school you go to. So I think just kind of naming that I think every school has really great people, and I think it's just a matter of finding your people and finding the people that make you happy, and then everything else can kind of follow from there. But I think making sure you prioritize that is really key. I mean, I think certain things that are special at Harvard is what people have been saying. Everyone who's there is just incredibly motivated and hardworking, and the entire experience is very intense, for better or worse. So everything you're going to do, whether it's classes, whether it's extracurriculars, it's just going to be intense in terms of the amount of kind of workload, in terms of the amount people will just care about those things. There isn't a lot of people who are just indifferent. So I think that's something you just have to, you have to decide if that's right for you. I know lots of people who went to Harvard who had incredible experience, who you know, it was just the right fit for them because of that level of intensity, because of their aspirations, you know, the types of friends they found. But I know lots of people who are very unhappy, and those people who are very unhappy are not the type of people who would, of course, want to be on these panels. It's just, you know, there's a little bit of selection bias here. So I just want to name that, you know, it's certainly an experience that if you want it, it's great. If it's not for you, it's probably just not going to be a good fit. And so I think just being aware of that, you know, Harvard, and I think like other similar institutions, places like, you know, Stanford or the Ivy Leagues or whatever else, like probably similar in terms of just that level of intensity. If you're ready to, you know, be in an environment where, you know, there's kind of an expectation or cultural norm around just kind of working around the clock and you know, doing all these different activities outside of class, and you're excited just about that, that makes you excited as opposed to sounds draining, then that's great. But I definitely think it's something that people should make a conscious decision about. And then secondly, I mean, yeah, I think, I actually think that, you know, it's true. Like there is the brand name and the prestige of it. And I think that actually does carry a lot of weight. And it is actually, I think, unique of schools, maybe around, you know, really around the world. I mean, if you go to, you know, Australia, people will know what Harvard is, but they won't necessarily know what, you know, Princeton is. I mean, that's just a fact. And so I think there is that element of, you know, prestige and sort of the name that comes with the school. You know, so, I mean, of course, I don't think it makes sense to just kind of, you know, I guess overlook that. I mean, it's certainly a fact, but at the same time, like there's plenty of people, no matter what they're doing, that can rise to the top because of their talents, because of their skills. And, you know, they don't need that sort of name recognition. There's plenty of other ways to get recognition for your work. I think a college name, unfortunately, is one way to do it. I don't think it's really a good thing for society, but it is true. So, I mean, depending on what you want to do in life, you know, thinking about that sort of brand name of a school actually, I think is a consideration you should make, but certainly getting too obsessed with it, I think can be very detrimental to personal health, to your character. I think being able to focus and center yourself in you know, your what you care about, and, you know, center yourself in your friendships and relationships, I think will just lead to a healthier, happier lifestyle. But I think at the same time, you have to admit there is certain things like the name Harvard. There's a reason, you know, everyone wants to apply to Harvard. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you guys for that. So we'll move on to our next question. I know a lot of you went into this already, but how has the community at Harvard shaped your experience and shaped you as a person so far?
Yeah, so for me, I keep mentioning that community is incredibly important to me. I think especially as a woman of color, you know, I grew up in a neighborhood that was majority minority. I grew up around a lot of strong women and URM figures. So I've been trying sort of through different organizations, through different affinity groups on campus to really replicate, I guess, where I grew up. For me, it's been incredibly important to have a group of people that support me, whether that is, you know, finding that as part of an organization, or as Reed and Connor have mentioned, finding that in a supportive friend group, just being super proactive to find people who are supportive, who you work well with, who I guess really motivate you as well, is something that I've been super entrenched in. How it shaped me as a person, I would definitely say staying within these different communities has, I guess, just motivated me throughout my time at Harvard. You know, I have gone through, obviously with the online school now and with not being on campus, it is a lot harder to stay engaged and just feel connected to other people. So having these communities has definitely helped me throughout that time. Oh, sorry. I will say finding community is super important, but you do have to be proactive about it. And some of the best ways I've been able to find that community has been through organizations, or just through being super intentional with the friends that I do make and I do keep.
Yeah, I just want to echo Abby's point about like how organizations have helped me uh, have helped me stay engaged like throughout like online school. I'm on the business board of the Harvard Crimson, our school's newspaper, and one thing I really love about joining it or having joined it is like they do a lot of like online community events, which is within members of the board. You have calls all the time for like work related calls, but like you just feel like, oh, like I'm still like in contact constantly with Harvard kids, and even though like we're all across the world now, like I kind of feel like we're still at Harvard, at least momentarily, when we're all like online doing like community, like doing like fun things over Zoom. And so definitely one of the best things I did for finding community at Harvard is just joining student organizations. It's just a great way to just like meet new people, and especially people like who you might have not have come in contact with otherwise. There's a lot of people on the business board of the Crimson who, if I hadn't joined, I probably wouldn't have crossed paths with them and gotten to know them. And I'm really grateful that I have, because they definitely helped me improve as a person. And again, like you're being at Harvard, like you're surrounded by so many diverse people. Like I said, like people from so many different backgrounds, and that's one thing I really love about it. I do my best to reach out to as many different communities as possible. Like just like try to get to know them, get to talk to them, because it really just makes you feel like a more like a wholer person. You know, if you're able to understand the perspective of someone who comes from a different country, or someone who comes from a very underrepresented area, like even just like talking to someone from California, like you feel like, oh, even though we're from the same country, we come from fairly different cultures. Like we view the world differently because of where we come from, and our experiences have been so different. And it's just really good to like get to understand other people's experiences and how they view the world, and it really informs your worldview. And just I guess like gives you more empathy for other people in other communities. So I really love that about Harvard, diversity, and again, so many inspiring people, and it just helps you become a better person. It is intensive though, so that is a caveat. But yeah, I love the community at Harvard in short.
Yeah, and I think kind of adding on to that, Eric's right. The people, for the most part, are amazing, and I've had some of the most insightful and amazing conversations in my life, just at late night, like D Hall conversations, and it really was pretty cool to, at least for me, come from a background in high school where I didn't really have a lot of peers I could have those kind of conversations with, and share those interests. To come to a place like Harvard and suddenly feel like everyone just had so much interesting stuff to say, and everyone is just such a different perspective, and it's kind of refreshing. I think to add on to that, organizations also play a huge role in forming community at Harvard. And so when I first came to Harvard, I had a couple of weeks of opening days where I was just able to meet people in my freshman class. And then after that, we had an activity fair, and I went and looked at all these really amazing activities and clubs, and I signed up for them. And a lot of those ended up being my primary social activities at Harvard. I mean, often those clubs would be the ones throwing parties on the weekends, and I would hang out with those friends a lot too. And that really kind of broadened my community at Harvard. And being involved in those organizations was something that really helped me kind of feel like I had a place, and also be able to have fun things to do on the weekend and stuff like that. And so I can say it certainly has shaped me as a person. I think made me more intellectually curious, and like I said in the beginning, just some of the conversations are amazing, and that's one of the really cool parts about being at a place like this and being able to interact with people that go here.
Great, yeah. So I think just to point out some of the unique parts about Harvard's culture, which I think some of the other panelists have been mentioning. I think one is certainly extracurriculars are very important to Harvard students. Everyone's in an extracurricular, or usually multiple, and they take them very seriously and commit to them. And usually there's a lot of social sort of elements combined with extracurriculars, all sorts of parties and socials and, you know, friend groups that are formed from extracurriculars. And I think that's actually a really cool thing about Harvard that is special. I think the other thing that is really unique is the house system that they have in the freshman dorms. There's just a ton of investment. You know, Harvard has a lot of money, and they invest a lot in the sort of social experience for you know, freshmen. There's freshmen in the freshman dorms. Everyone has their sort of you know, parent who is just basically an adult who lives there and takes care of you. There's all sorts of, you know, intramurals and all these other activities for freshmen and sort of team building things that can come through freshman dorms. And then the house system, which you all may know about, but essentially everyone gets sorted into you know, a house, which, you know, has its own, you know, library and dining hall and sort of community built in, lots of, you know, professionals and adults who are there to support your experience. And so that makes, that definitely helps the community. And I think one thing that I think is special about Harvard too, is just in general, you know, it's a small enough campus where you just walk to class, you're going to see like, you know, 10 or 20 people, you know, on the way, you're going to wave at them and you're going to have that sense of it really being sort of this little bubble where you are kind of, you know, almost like a high school or something, like you really do know a lot of people. So that's all really special. I certainly, you know, love that aspect of the community. That was something that I really enjoyed, is just kind of knowing everyone and having those relationships with them. And I also agree with people that, you know, generally Harvard students are very good people and very interesting to talk to, very intellectually interesting. You know, usually lots of them are down to have those late night conversations. I think most people I know at Harvard have had at least a few of those all-nighters where you stay up and just talk about some interesting philosophical question. And I think that is really special. I think the two things that I kind of got kind of in terms of kind of shaping my character from the experience, I think one is, you know, it just kind of cultivates, like I mentioned earlier, those habits of sort of passion and commitment. I think especially ambition. I think everyone is just quite ambitious, and for better or worse, again, like I think, you know, I think if that's what you're looking for sort of an ambitious lifestyle, it certainly can help cultivate those that kind of character. And then I think the second thing, which is definitely more negative in my opinion, is this kind of thing I've mentioned earlier, which is this sort of status obsessed culture. I think most people I know at Harvard care a lot more about, you know, the name of the schools that they're going to for graduate school, or like the you know, companies they interned at, or you know, their titles that they have in some club, more than the actual impact that they're having in the world, or the way that they're, you know, they don't take as much status or priority around like how strong are their friendships, or how do they treat their family, or you know, how strong is their faith if they're, you know, a person of faith. Like those sorts of things that I think have a lot more weight and valence in most of society is just not super emphasized by Harvard students. And I think after I graduated, I think I had also this kind of inflated ego of like, oh, I went to Harvard, like I'm extremely important and special, and like that's what you're told for 4 years. And I had to kind of deprogram that sort of that attitude, because it's just such an arrogant, you know, ignorant way to kind of go through life. And I think I also had to deprogram this aspect of seeing kind of people's worth based on like, you know, their schools, or, you know, what like kind of titles they'd had or whatever else, like, or their, you know, things as stupid as like, you know, the GPA they had, like things that really don't matter in terms of, you know, how their worth, or, you know, how like great their character is, or things like that. And so I really had to do, I think, some pretty significant deprogramming after I graduated. It really helped that, you know, I you know, was working with people that were not, you know, hadn't gone to Harvard and things like that. So I think that's just one thing, again, I really want to emphasize for everyone is really to try to avoid that trap of, I guess what's called the meritocracy trap, and avoid that being on that kind of endless ladder, or, you know, of trying to climb up some sort of rungs towards status, when I think that's really, you know, a really poor way to kind of go through life. There's a couple book recommendations I can put in the chat, but that kind of talk about this more. But yeah, I think those are kind of my overall points. So definitely kind of mixed thoughts about that, but it's certainly great things and also some not so great things.
Yeah, thank you for that. Those are all very insightful. So what we're going to do now is we actually have 5 planned questions, but we are going to skip number 4 because we want to have more time for our audience Q&A. So our 5th question is, so we're all high school students, many of which just went through or are going through the college application process this coming year. So what advice would you have for a prospective student? And maybe not even, maybe just for high school students in general, what advice would you give them to follow their dreams at a young age?
Yeah, so to answer the question you just posed orally, I feel like this idea or push to follow your dreams might be a little bit inauthentic. I feel like, at least for me, I see it more because the idea of following a dream, I feel like, is also constructed. It's like you're chasing this ideal. I like the idea more so of really growing into the person you're meant to be. And just chasing something, or like rather working on something that continually inspires you and that you're intensely motivated by. So when it comes to the college application, I would really suggest for students to be as authentic as possible. And I think this is important because, at least for me, I saw the college admissions process to be a sort of matchmaking where schools are trying to find people who mesh into their cultures. And then students also, ideally would like to attend a school where they feel super connected. So just being as authentic as possible, really putting forth who you are, just in the most real way. I think is definitely some advice I've given over and over again, and which I will continue to give as well. I know some people who, strive to apply to prestigious schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, etc. Think you have to be like a super like intellectually deep philosophical person. And like at the age of like 17, 18, when you're applying, like I'm gonna bet that a majority of teenagers aren't that. So, you know, just being as authentic as possible, I think, is really my message here. Like, for example, I know one of my Harvard roommates wrote her comment application on how much she loves her bathroom and how that is her favorite place in the world. So I think that just goes to show, you can really be yourself. You don't have to really put out this persona if that isn't you. And things will really work out in the end because you'll be, really accepted into a school where you like really fit and mesh into the culture.
Yeah. As for the college application process, I think it's just really important to convey effectively through your essay who you are and like who you want to be. Um, like it doesn't have to be like super in depth, like, oh, like it can be like you can convey who you are in many different ways. Like Abby said, like you can do it through like writing about your bathroom. Um, and so like I personally just like wrote about my experiences growing up, working in the restaurant industry and how that shaped me into the person I was. Um, and so yeah, I guess like it definitely requires some soul searching on my part. I went on a lot of like nature walks when I was writing my essay. I would like just jot down ideas when I was like going on walks. But yeah, essentially like just figure out. I mean, you're gonna be 17 probably, and so you're not gonna have like a full picture of who you are. Like I'm definitely have a different vision for myself now than I did like when I was applying to college 3 years ago. But yeah, definitely just go on some walks, like do some soul searching and really think like who are you and how do you want to convey that in your essay. And because colleges, there's a thousand, there's a couple tens of thousands valedictorians, perfect SAT scores, etc., etc. So like what sets you apart is, I guess, who you are as a person. And so definitely try to figure that out, and try to convey that in your college application. And as for advice in general in high school, I guess like just work hard and stay positive. A lot of fruits of labor aren't reaped until a long time after the labor's been put in. And so definitely just be able to work hard and just like delay your gratification and keep moving towards an overarching vision. And of course, there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. I've had a lot of bumps in my road personally. You're going to go through some struggles, some hardships. They just have the ability to just, I guess, like keep your head up and keep moving forward no matter what life throws at you. My wrestling coach used to say, you always have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I can't wait till tomorrow. And the reason is because you always get better looking every day. So yeah. So just be able to, in times of hardship, just be able to stay positive, stay optimistic, and keep moving forward. Yeah.
Awesome. I think first, in terms of general high school advice, maybe for those of you who have a little bit more time for the application process, I would say one of the big things for me that I wish I did more was seize opportunities that kind of came my way. And I think often I wouldn't apply for something or go for something that either seemed too difficult or seemed scary. Either I thought I wasn't going to get it, or I thought that I just wasn't capable of doing it. And I think there are a lot of opportunities that kind of come our way that are out there that seem very far off, but you kind of have to go for those. And you put yourself out there. Like, you have to put yourself out there and assume that you're going to fail at most opportunities. And then the ones that you do succeed at are going to be the ones that kind of really define you. And I think that's especially important in high school, where there are a lot of things like running for some certain student leadership position that's scary and feels like you're probably not going to get it. But like, what's the worst that happens if you don't get it? If you fail to be elected to a certain position, or you fail to found a certain club, or you have some other passion that you go for. Really, I think the most important part is to kind of go through high school and the moment you're in right now, and try and go through without having any regrets, and apply for the things you want to apply for, regardless of what you think you're going to get in. If it requires 5 hours of writing an essay and a bunch of other work, then so be it. I mean, I think, as Eric said, it's a lot about delaying gratification and putting yourself out there for things that you're not going to be able to get. In terms of advice for college applications, I don't know if I'm particularly qualified to give specific advice for college applications, because there's a lot of stuff out there. So maybe I'll just give some in terms of trying to stay sane through the process and keep your mental health in check, which is that you should try as hard as you can on this stuff, and can follow what we've said, I think, previously, just about working hard with it. And of course, you know that already. And worry about it up until that point, up until the very point where you can still put in effort and make a difference. But at the very moment where you've submitted an application or you've done what you can do, it's hard to act by this, but really it's not worth worrying about anymore. It's not worth your mental health about just thinking about it all the time. And once you do get a reply back or a decision, it's done. It's nothing you can do. And so dwelling on that and dwelling on those failures can be really tough. And I think, especially as many of you are probably going to go for a lot of really competitive programs, the reality is you're probably going to get denied from them, because everyone's getting denied from them. And there's a lot of luck involved. And it kind of goes back to my first point of putting yourself out there for opportunities. So I think it's important to keep this stuff in perspective and say, I'm going to work as hard as I can for the things I can make a difference in. And then after that moment, try to take a step back and put things in perspective and say, I've done what I can, regardless of whether I get in or not. I'm very proud of my effort, and I can't control the rest of the process. So that's something that I wish I could live by a little bit more, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I think I have quite similar advice in some ways as the other, so hopefully this isn't super duplicative. But I mean, just to start with, I personally was rejected from Duke, Stanford, Brown, Yale. I think at least those four, maybe even more. But anyways, I think just pointing that out, because it's like, okay, yeah, it's clearly there's some randomness, right? If like you get into some of these schools that are all kind of like similarly ranked on paper or whatever, and then others you don't. So I think that's just a pretty typical experience. Sure, there's always those kids who get into all of the schools, but you know, that's very rare. And so just making that point first, I think there's also, you know, when I graduated college in summer of 2018, I moved down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where UNC is. And I was kind of surprised just how many of the kids that I met down there, you know, had tons and tons of internship experiences. You know, we're working at Goldman and McKinsey and Bain and BCG and all the same places that, you know, the Harvard people are working at, you know, and as this is a sort of a business club, like maybe that's on your minds, is like, how do I get into these sort of, you know, high tier business related things? I really don't think that, you know, the college name is again, like a deal breaker at all to get into these sorts of industries, if that's what you're passionate about. I think the people who are successful, they're going to be extremely motivated, hardworking, and ultimately they're the people who are just going to do a good job when they're in their roles, and they're going to, you know, they'll get a good internship, and then they'll lead to another good internship, and you can do that from most colleges in the country. So again, just kind of stressing what other people have stressed, like, you know, it really, like, the college is not going to determine your entire future or your entire career. I think it's important to do some thinking too about, like, again, like, what kind of college experience you're going after. Are you going after a super intense, ambitious experience, or are you going for an experience that maybe allows you to just have kind of more laid back, fun times with friends and you know, in some place with beautiful nature? You know, those are totally valid experiences, like for you know, in college. But then I guess to actually give like kind of tangible advice that you might actually be looking for here in terms of like, yeah, you actually do want to apply to a place like Harvard, you actually want to do that. you know, that's great if that's something that you really want to do. And like I think the biggest piece of advice is just because there are tens of thousands of applications, like you really want to figure out, you know, what makes you unique, what makes you stand out. And not just to kind of put that on paper, but you actually have to like live that. You have to actually like admissions officers aren't going to be fooled if you like, you know, just, you know, try and get a bunch of titles and a bunch of clubs, but you don't like do anything with those clubs, or you don't, you know, there isn't any sort of like any kind of substance behind it. Like you really have to have the substance, I think, to really, you know, to be competitive. So I think you can't just be padding resume. I think you have to, you know, you have to obviously do a lot, and you also have to, you know, really show how you're making a difference when whatever sort of sphere, you know, matters to you. And again, like just wanted to caveat all that with like, that's a crazy amount of pressure. I think our society is pretty screwed up that like, you know, we're having like teenagers and like adolescents like kind of deal with that level of pressure of like feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to make this like really important decision. I have to work my ass off for like, sorry, or my butt off for, you know, as hard as I can for, you know, all these years. And then it's still like kind of at the whims of some admissions officers, like what happens. And I think that's, you know, partly that is how it's kind of structured, which is really messed up. So I hope you all just also remember to be kind to yourself, to realize that, you know, this whole system is kind of messed up, and you know, you're just part of it, but you know, it's not how life has to be. And after you do this admissions process, there really isn't anything else quite as intense and sort of draining as I think the admissions process. At least I haven't experienced anything like that since I've graduated. So yeah, just if that's what you want to do, grind through it for the next, you know, however many years, and then try to put that behind you and move on and focus your life on other bigger and better things.
All right, everyone. So thank you for your answers there. I think all of us can say that we learned a lot from that. And now I'm going to hand it off to Jeremy, who's going to be in charge for a Q&A for the next few minutes.
All right. Hello, everybody. Just to echo what Aarav and Zain said, I want to thank all the panelists. You guys have been very insightful. So now without further ado, we'll get right into the audience Q&A. So our first question comes from Jana, who directs her question to Abigail and Reed. And she asks, how has Harvard helped you to grow and expand the organizations that you have started?
I think for me personally, just coming from, you know, I went to a super underfunded public high school. And then for me, going from a place like that to a place like Harvard, I just became very acutely aware of the inequities that exist, especially in higher education. And so, you know, as a freshman, and I guess to contextualize this a little bit more, I was the first person from my school to go to Harvard in like decades. And so I naturally got a lot of outreach from my school and from current students like, hey, how did you think about the application process? How do you write a super stellar essay? Et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know, I took it under, I took it upon myself to just mentor a lot of my sort of past high school peers and a lot of upperclassmen at my previous high school to just guide them throughout the application process, and just be that helping hand, because, you know, they don't really have the traditional support network. For example, a lot of the students at my high school had like immigrant parents, or their parents were working all the time, et cetera. So I really wanted to be like their support network. And eventually sort of that mentorship really continued to develop to the point where I was literally hosting like mini college webinars with 30 kids, 40 kids like over Zoom. And so I was super inspired just to see the type of impact that just knowledge sharing could have, and that, you know, the type of impact that having somebody there who has gone through the processing and kind of get and pass that knowledge along to other students can have. And so I launched my nonprofit actually with the help of some other Harvard friends and some other really dedicated students across the nation, in order to just continue to do what I was doing on a more micro scale, just continuing to provide mentorship to underprivileged, under-resourced students, continuing to, you know, host these webinars, provide resources, just provide really a support network. And so yeah, I guess to kind of synthesize and come back to answer your question, I became aware of the different inequities going to an institution like Harvard, and I was really motivated to do something about it. And so that was really the genesis of my current project.
Yeah, and for me, as I mentioned, sort of the work that I do is helping young people return to their hometowns and actually become homegrown leaders there. So helping them build those roots and working kind of Abigail's point and being able to see these inequities of across communities and having people who are coming from underprivileged backgrounds, underprivileged communities, and then actually coming back with those skills and those talents and those new leadership skills that they may have developed in college, and actually using that to help lift up the people within their own hometown. So that's the program that I'm involved with, and I think I think the way Harvard has helped a lot is definitely again kind of that sort of habit of just hard work and passion and just giving it everything you've got. I think is certainly true. I think that's a habit that I think was cultivated a lot in college. But I think the second one for me is critical thinking. I mean, I think you're just going to be an environment with a lot of really smart people who will push back on things you say if they don't make sense or if like you can't really justify them. And so I think you really have to, you have to really kind of be able to, you have to be able to write effectively, you have to be able to communicate effectively, and you just can't get away with saying things that, you really can't be defended. And so I think that sort of just type of thinking, that sort of skill, I think that's one of the most important types of skills for, the modern day economy and society we have. And so I think wherever you end up going, I think that's something you want to seek out is how can I improve my writing abilities? How can I be in a community of people who disagree with me that I can be challenged by, who can make me just think more critically and question assumptions I have. That certainly has been, incredibly valuable for my startup experience and just figuring out how to do things I've never done before. Because I think that's the third point I have is like Harvard is not a place to is not a pre-professional place. You're not going to go there. I mean, I think there's certain majors that are more so than others. Like if you're doing maybe economics, it'll help you prepare you for like the business career, or certainly computer science, sure. But like I think that's not Harvard's strength. Harvard's definitely liberal arts college, and it's definitely more about getting just sort of a very well-rounded, I would say, experience of different disciplines, and it won't give you a lot of hard skills. And so I think that's something that other schools actually do a lot better. So yeah, I guess just throwing that out there too.
All right, thank you. So our next question, both Jennifer and Abraham both sent in the chat, and they ask, what high school activities or extracurriculars do you think set you apart from other Harvard applicants? And anybody can answer this.
For me, something that I devoted a lot of time to in high school was definitely science research. And so my high school has this really wonderful program where they take a select group of students and just like guide them throughout the independent research process. And so I did 2 capstone projects in high school. One was on engineering and the other one was in neuroscience. And a lot of high school kids do research, but I think something that maybe was unique to me was maybe my motivation behind it. I was super motivated by just seeking out problems that I saw within my community and helping to solve them. And I think that I should mention that I wrote my Common App essay on sort of the research I did and my motivation behind that. Like, for example, for my neuroscience project, I actually had someone very close, a family friend, pass away from stroke. And so I took upon, this endeavor. I wasn't even planning on doing this project, but I took upon this endeavor in order to find a way to rehabilitate those who do survive from stroke in the most efficient and streamlined manner. And so that was that project. And so, yeah, so for me, I just had a really strong motivation to do research. And I think that came out sort of in the quality of the projects that I ended up producing. And also, I had like a pretty heartfelt Common App essay, which I definitely do think helped. Other than that, I was involved in a ton of efforts to support diversity within my community as well as inclusion. And so I did a lot of things within different STEM fields with New York State, with the local government or to just increase enrollment for underrepresented students in STEM fields. That is something that has sort of carried over into the work that I do today. So I guess just keeping those common threads, and also out, because I feel like oftentimes some high school students who are like obsessed with this elite culture of like pursuing or applying to prestigious universities take upon like leadership positions. I know some of our panelists have mentioned this, but like I do think there is artifice in taking upon like a leadership position and not having real impact, or like not being super motivated to be in that. So I do believe in pursuing things that are interesting to you, and that you'll be able to be motivated to just have a high impact in. And that's what I did. And, you know, I really enjoyed my time in high school because of that.
I guess I can talk a bit. One thing I recommend is you know, some people think that in order to get into these schools you need to do like a crazy amount of things, you need to do this, you need to do that. I disagree. I didn't I did a decent amount of clubs, but I didn't do any I wasn't involved in every single thing imaginable. I just dedicated myself more to to a smaller number of things. I was really involved in athletics. I started on the varsity team for soccer, and I started on the varsity wrestling team. And we won the South Jersey Championship my junior year. So that was like, we won the South Jersey Championship. We were conference champions. We were 3-time conference champions in wrestling. And so like just being part of like, I guess like athletic achievements definitely helped me stand out. I wasn't a recruited athlete or anything. I'm not good enough to play at the D1 level, but like just to show like I dedicated myself to sports, and I was an integral part of like just like athletic success that these teams that high school teams experience. Definitely helped me definitely helped set me apart. Another thing, the thing that I think probably did the most set me apart is actually has nothing to do with school activities or anything. So my parents own restaurants, and so I grew up my entire life working in restaurants, learning how like managing people. Imagine like a 14-year-old managing managing a staff, which is pretty weird, pretty crazy to think about. Like to me, it was just the way life was, but like it's pretty crazy that like I was like managing people when I was like 14, 15 years old at a restaurant. And so like I talked a lot about that in my interview. So like just talking about like my experience working and how it shaped me into the person I was. One thing I did is I actually did my own entrepreneurial endeavor and negotiated a contract with my high school to sell tacos at the Friday night football games, which is a really good business idea by me because that was the year our team went undefeated. So there was a very large crowd. So it was a very good business decision for sure. But yeah, I guess like just being involved in the restaurant industry, I think is what helped set me apart. Because I think it's a pretty unique experience that I don't think too many people can share.
Mm-hmm. So already, we are closing in on time and a couple minutes over. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. For all of our members, more information about our next events will be provided soon via Slack. For many of you tuning in online who might be interested in becoming a member of IBC, please check out any of our national chapters at internatus.org/apply. I want to take a moment to thank all of you guys for coming, your really nice and unique questions, and especially all of the panelists for taking the time out of their day to speak for us. I know for me, it was very insightful, but I'm sure all of our members got something out of it. And I want to thank you for that. And I hope all of you guys enjoy the rest of the long weekend here.